Home sweet home. The Florida Panthers are back at Emirates Bank Arena for the first time in 2024. Sam Reinhart speaks on his ongoing contract negotiation. And is Kevin Bieksa right about Nick Cousins?
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Thursday, January 11th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow show count on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. And today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself with a purchase of a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com and use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. That's JASE medical.com. So the Florida Panthers are back at home at Emirates Bank Arena for the first time in 2024. Where, man, good vibes for the Florida Panthers. Good, and just the fact that they've gone multiple games as well with winning by multiple goals. It's great to see that the Florida Panthers are just taking care of their business and hoping to carry that over to their home schedule, as the majority of their games going forward will be at home. Only 2 games left outside of the Eastern time zone, and one of them will be in a few weeks when they go to Nashville, and then in March against the Dallas Stars as well. So I want to take some time to discuss more about what's going on with the contract negotiations with Sam Reinhart. Obviously, we know about the season that Sam Reinhart is having, with having 29 goals, only 1 goal away from 30. I mean, he's already there, and he's on pace to get 60 goals this season, as we are about at the halfway point of the season for the NHL season, just for the March of the playoffs as well. But I wanted to discuss more about what Sam Reinhart has said publicly. He did speak with Frank Saravelli of Daily Faceoff yesterday, while the day after that they had their win against the St. Louis Blues, and this is what Sam Reinhart had to say. Quote, being in a contract year isn't something new to me. I've got no problem with contract negotiations being ongoing. It's not taking away from my preparation or how I handle day to day. It's kind of where I stay in my head, kind of focus. The interest is definitely mutual and definitely positive. The goal is to stay in Florida. I love it in Florida, and I know they're happy to have me. Close quote. Bill Zito also spoke about how you got to have that buy-in in order to win, you want to keep everybody, but sometimes people would have to make sacrifices in order to be part of a winning culture as well. And yeah, also something that David Rodriguez of the FLA Cats Hockey Podcast tweeted the other day was about the net income and taxes and all that when it came to William Nylander's contract as well. And this is one that is very interesting. Quote, at 9.5 per year AAV, Matthew Tkachuk will net more in pay than William Nylander's 11.5 million. A player in Toronto would need to earn 12.875 million per year to be equivalent net in pay to Tkachuk's 9.5 million, close quote. And David went to point out that it's a 17% tax difference in Florida than compared to a city like Toronto. And also, this is where signing bonuses are important as well when it comes to that. And the guys over at Panther Prairie also discuss about when it comes to signing bonuses and having a place somewhere else that's not in Canada, that you could get some tax advantages there as well. So even if Sam Reinhart does go somewhere else, whether it's a tax state or country or Canada, California, New York, that's also something to consider when it comes to that. But The Athletic Shayna Goldman actually had an article about surplus value of Sam Reinhart as well when it comes to what he's doing this season, all situations type of player. Obviously the discussion is how much of this can be sustainable over the lifetime of the contract as well, and also discuss more about how he was in the negatives as far as goals, uh, expected goal share as well. But also when he is on the ice, the Panthers are controlling 61% of the expected goal share as well, and outscoring opponents 31-15 as well, while at 5-on-5 as well. So, Sam Reinhart definitely a big contributor to the Panthers. We've seen what he's doing on the power play, especially in that bumper position, which has been just key. It's been hard to stop, and I know teams will start to key in on that when the Panthers are on the man advantage. No doubt about that. But what is his surplus value as well for where his performance is versus what he's getting paid this year specifically? Salaries at 6.5. Let's not forget when he was an RFA and traded to the Florida Panthers. It took a while for the Panthers to officially announce a contract for Sam Reinhart, but the talks were always they're in good standing. Nothing's going on behind the scenes as far as bad relationship as well. And obviously Sam Reinhart, who doesn't really express too much emotion, especially in the media. He's not going to throw the Panthers under the bus. And even I believe that even after if he leaves, big if, that he's not going to do he isn't going to do that. He isn't going to do that neither when he's gone. I think he's going to say nothing but positives. I could be wrong as well as that. But market value is for how he's performing is at 12.7 million according to the Athletics. The Athletic, excuse me, no S in there. But you think about where what he's doing and all, and just and it's obvious the Panthers are not going to give him 12.7 million. And also George Richards pointed out that the whole narrative that's out there about making more than Barkov and Kachuk. I mean, you owe it not only to yourself but to the players around you, in as far as the league, for you to fight for a contract like that, because it's gonna when it comes to the NHLPA and their relationship with the owners as far as what the salary cap is going to be, which we're projecting a $4.2 million rise as well. You owe it to your other players in order to get that raise for yourself, but for other people to eat as well, because they also got families to feed as well. And I know there are going to be people out there who are going to say, "Oh, 10 million, that should be enough for Sam Reinhart." We're not in his position, so I'm not going to tell. I'm obviously not going to tell a man what he wants to do, what he can and cannot do as far as the contract that he wants to go for. William Nylander had every right, did not give the Toronto Maple Leafs a hometown discount on his deal. I mean, if Sam Reinhart, looking at these models, says 12.7, why is he going to go something under 10 if he can get somewhere close to that? And yeah, there will be that conversation on tax advantages as well about comparing that, and it's just so interconnected, as well as what Nylander is doing to what Sam Reinhart is currently doing this year for the Florida Panthers. Yeah, the shooting percentage is 12.5% more than his career average, 27.5 to his career average, 15. Uh, so that's another thing. Is it sustainable over the lifetime of the deal? And that is something that for the Panthers, you're going to get a lot of that great value in the beginning of it, but it all comes down to term. And if you're Sam Reinhart, why are you going to take a term that's less that is why are you going to take a term that's 5 years? I don't it wouldn't make sense on his end of the bargain for that. So that is so Sam Reinhart, 12.7 million as far as his market value, with a 6.5 million salary AAV. So his surplus value at this moment in time, according to this model, is 6.2 million. And before the season, Shayna Goldman spoke about how a 7-year contract will be worth 8.8 million. And great for Sam Reinhart to bet on himself and all, as he's going to get a significant pay raise coming this offseason. Whether it's with the Panthers or whether it's not, remains to be seen. In segment number 2, we are going to discuss more about a fan vote as far as best goalies and worst goalies in the NHL preseason, and how Anthony Stolarz looks now as far as situation with the Panthers, and ask this question: is Kevin Bieksa right about Nick Cousins? We're going to discuss that and more here on today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. And we come to sport to escape from some of the crazy realities in life. But can we talk just for a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. And that is scary. And I can't imagine where if someone felt helpless and feeling as if a significant other of of mine or one of my fellow family members or family friends got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from life-saving medications that they needed. Thankfully, they will be and I will be okay because of Jace Medical. If the Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses like UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter, and it will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code Locked On to get $20 off your order. That's JASE medical.com. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Back on this Thursday, January 11th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Thursday. And also, looks like that Sergei Bobrovsky is well on his way to being named an all-star due to fan voting. And last time I checked, he was in second as far as goaltenders go. A reminder that it is via a draft for this edition of the All-Star game that's going on in Toronto. And we won't see Sam Reinhart and Sergei Bobrovsky automatically on the same team. Who knows how that will look by the time that we get to the early part of February. And also in the AHL, Lucas Carlson has been named an AHL All-Star, led defenseman in goals last season and is well on his way to doing the same thing this year. And as far as Lucas Carlson goes, still up in the air about what his role could be his future looks like with the Florida Panthers, with if they lose a Forsling or a Montour in free agency coming up. Does his role increase? But as of right now, where the Florida Panthers are at with the logjam on defense, I don't think Lucas Carlson really has a role on the NHL side of things. But the development is there for Lucas Carlson, and who knows? Maybe we could see that as far as a great future for the Florida Panthers, or they could use them in a trade at the trade deadline, as far as getting something back, as far as setting up another one at the trade deadline if the Panthers are really wanting to go for it this year. Also, in the beginning of the season, JFresh Hockey had a fan vote going on about voting the 64 best goaltenders in the NHL, and Anthony Stolarz came at 64th out of 64 coming into the year. And even before the season started, I was thinking, man, work environment and system really matters. So I can't put too much stock in it. Yeah, we heard about the big size of Anthony Stolarz and all, but also situationally with the Anaheim Ducks last year, which Anaheim, holy crap, getting Cutter Gauthier in that trade with the Philadelphia Flyers, who Cutter Gauthier did not want to be part of the Philadelphia Flyers. And it's been something that's been brewing for a long time behind the scenes. And then Anaheim pulls that trade off. as far as getting him. And with the embarrassment of riches that the Ducks have in their prospect pool, Jamie Drysdale goes the other way and a second round pick to Philadelphia in that trade. But going back to Anthony Stolarz, just the 923 save percentage, 1.95 GAA, and all, and just being so reliable behind Sergei Bobrovsky has been just everything you could ask for as well. And right now it's also great because you're giving Spencer Knight the playing time that he needs in order to get that workload, because I believe I'm not sure where Spencer Knight stands as far as waivers exempt going into next year. He's not waivers exempt. He is waivers exempt, excuse me, right now, but gotta see if he will be starting next year as well, because goalie waivers are a little different than skaters as well when it comes to that. But we'll deal with that when we get there. For goalies going into this year, it was 80 games in Spencer Knight's fourth year, so he was and he was like 20 games short. So that's what made Spencer Knight waivers exempt, and had him sent down to the AHL to start the season. But another thing I want to mention is something that happened on Hockey Night in Canada last week, where Kevin Bieksa spoke about Nick Cousins, describing about how of all the edgy play that Nick Cousins has had throughout his career. Obviously, he's been in the league a while. He's established himself as a pretty decent role player as well. Yeah, have had some frustrations about Nick Cousins this season, but yeah, we don't deny here that he does play a little bit on the edge. And Kevin Bieksa, a player who spent 13 years in the NHL, 10 of them with the Vancouver Canucks, went to a Stanley Cup final with Luongo and the Sedin Twins. 1,124 penalties in minutes throughout his career. Spoke about this, and he also brings up the hit on Valimaki that I wanted to watch the replay 2 or 3 more times before coming on here. And once again, Valimaki is falling down to his knees as Nick Cousins is going there. Could Nick Cousins have stopped himself? Yes, I'm not going to deny that. But it's a different in slow motion than it is in live time for sure. And then Zucker comes in and took exception. And let's also, if you look at the replay again, Valimaki is looking for the puck as soon as he gets back up. So Zucker took more exception than Nick Cousins as well. And Bieksa did point out about a hit on Mark Scheifele last year in a home game, which I felt was a little cherry picked in my opinion. The Gudbranson hit is still very edgy as far as that, where you see some numbers, but it's towards his shoulder as well. But peripherals, looking back as the puck was dumped, a little hard to see as well. If you're wearing a visor as well, it can block some things from your peripherals as well. And also going back to mentioning Panther Puri, they broke this down as well. Go listen to them as they broke this down as well about Nick Cousins, what happened in the 56 game season just back in 2021, where I actually looked up the video just to look back at it, because it's been a while since that game since that season happened. The 56 game season, it was a video, 3 minutes and 32 seconds of Nick Cousins just agitating Jonathan Huberdeau. And obviously, for some content, for context, we spoke about all that year of eight matchups, developing some rivalries. We definitely saw one with the Nashville Predators that season, for sure, as Nick Cousins and Jonathan Huberdeau were just going back and forth, cross-checking each other. And also going back to Bieksa, he did bring up a really good point about Nick Cousins, that what are some of the what's the same thing going, what is the consistent theme going on with Nick Cousins when he is playing on the edge, is that bottom of the pile most times. And yeah, you can't make a player fight, you can't, but at the same time, if you are going to be consistently playing on the edge, in my opinion, sometimes you need to just get up and go on with the fight as well. So that's another thing when it comes to that as well. don't want to shame Nick Cousins' character. That's not what I'm trying to do here as well. He's brought a lot of great memories to people in South Florida. Game 5 of the second round last year, but we have to acknowledge as well about the edgy play for Nick Cousins. And Bieksa spoke about Rafi Torres, about the NHL cracking down on him after a while, and it took a while for the NHL to crack down on Tom Wilson too. So it took them a while for that. Obviously, we knew we spoke about how what happened between Wilson, Artemi Panarin as well, just a few seasons ago. Actually, in that very same season that Nick Cousins and Jonathan Huberdeau had their fair share of scuffles throughout that game in Sunrise, Florida. But Tom Wilson and Artemi Panarin, Tom Wilson basically ended Artemi Panarin's season, and the NHL's had an eye on Tom Wilson. Will they have more of an eye on Nick Cousins when he does return? More than likely they will. So, by the way, he is still in concussion protocol and hasn't skated, according to Jameson Olive of FloridaPanthers.com. So, something I want to discuss more there about Nick Cousins, and if the edgy play, which we don't expect to stop, if something happens as far as rough hits and scuffles after, then look for the NHL to do something about it. So, in segment number 3, we are going to discuss tonight's matchup between the Florida Panthers and the Los Angeles Kings, where it is 90s night from Amerant Bank Arena. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper, and it's almost the halfway point of the NHL season, and we've gone through some lows, but mostly highs, especially with the Panthers on an 8-game winning streak, hopefully trying to make it 9 tonight at Amerant Bank Arena. And regardless of where they are in the standings, which, by the way, a Panthers win and a Bruins loss tonight at the Vegas Golden Knights, the Panthers will hold the tiebreaker for first in the Atlantic Division due to regulation wins. And I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy contests. All you have to do is pick studs like Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Sam Reinhart, or even Sergei Bobrovsky, if they will record more or less their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Cats fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for detail and locational availability. Back on this Thursday, January 11th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Thursday. So, Panthers, Los Angeles Kings tonight from Amerant Bank Arena on 90s night, dedicating the night to the 90s, which the Panthers will have another one against the Philadelphia Flyers for 2000s, and then later on against the New York Islanders for 2010s and beyond. And one really cool thing that the Panthers are doing is first ever captain Brian Skrudlin will be doing the ceremonial puck drop with Bill Lindsay, Ray Shepard, and Tom Fitzgerald. They'll all be in building. And crazy enough, Tom Fitzgerald's New Jersey Devils will be here on Saturday. So he's coming back to South Florida a little early, and they'll be wearing anniversary patches for every decade theme night. And a lot of us, including myself, wish that they wore the Leaping Panther sweater on the theme nights, especially because all of the 90s and 2000s and even the first half of the 2010s, they wore the Leaping Panther. But hey, that's neither. I'm not the one that makes the decisions, but yeah, That's my 2 cents as far as that. But Montel Jordan, speaking of 90s, will be singing the national anthem and doing a performance during the first intermission. Also, if you purchase 2 Coca-Cola Zeros, zero sugar, you get a Bill Lindsay pin as well. And uh, Scrudlin, Lindsay, Shepard, and Fitzgerald will also be speaking to the media during the first intermission tonight as well. As far as morning skate for the Panthers go, Ekblad took the option today, but he will be in the lineup for the Florida Panthers tonight when they take on the LA Kings, where that the last time the Panthers faced the Kings, it was the day before Montour and Ekblad actually returned to the lineup. Josh Mahura got hurt in that game, and then the Panthers really got healthy from there. Not off to the best of starts as far as getting everybody back in, but look where they are now as far as 2 points behind first in the Atlantic Division. And the LA Kings coming off a 6-game losing currently on a 6-game losing streak on a big 6-game road trip. Currently 3-4-3 in the last 10, still have a plus 30 goal differential and somewhat of a murderer's row as far as what they've gone through lately. I just want to name some of the teams that they faced off against recently as well. And and looking for their first win actually in 2024. So some of the teams that they lost to during this losing skid: Vegas, Edmonton in a shootout, Toronto at home, Detroit in a shootout, and Washington on the road, and the Tampa Bay Lightning, which they blew a 2-goal lead against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So 3 of those losses were overtime losses. So they got the loser point as far as that, but still not getting the 2 points in their last 6, any of them. And with the 2-goal lead, even had a goal disallowed too on a review. That Anthony Cirelli crashed the net and it was disallowed due to interference as well. And with that road record, 13-3-2, and a team that can roll all 4 lines. If there's a team that can execute a retool well, it's the Los Angeles Kings, while still having guys like Anze Kopitar, Drew Doughty, Trevor Lewis, which Matthew Tkachuk's friend, Drew Doughty. Am I right? So that I'm sure the retool is something that Craig Conroy of the Calgary Flames is looking at when it comes to his side of things, because the Calgary Flames can't go scorched earth as far as the contract goes, but you can still retool around some of the players that you do have around your team. And the Los Angeles Kings are a perfect example. Panthers have lost 6 straight against Los Angeles as well. So even going back to November, we spoke about how LA they're outstanding on the road, but they at that time they only had 1 home win in 8 tries, and that game against the Florida Panthers, it was their 2nd win at home. But completely different team. They're not intimidated by the last change, by not having the last change, excuse me, and they are continuing to they have just continued to pile up wins on the road. Again, 13-3-2. Goals for is 12th, while the Florida Panthers are 5th. Goals against, which that's really the formula for the Los Angeles Kings, which a lot of the statistics as far as defense, the LA Kings and the Florida Panthers are basically neck and neck. Kings are 2nd in goals against, Florida's 3rd. Power of PK, they are the best in the NHL. Florida's 5th. Shots for, the LA Kings are 1st, while the Florida Panthers are 2nd. Shots against, they're both tied with 2nd in the NHL. And also goals against, number 1 is Winnipeg, by the way. And they've gone 30 straight games giving up 3 goals or less. My goodness, you're going to win a lot of hockey games with when you have that kind of defense going for you. But the LA Kings are up there as well, even though they're 3rd place in the Pacific Division, right behind Vegas and Vancouver. And they possess the puck a lot. We spoke about the shots for the LA Kings, but the Corsi for percentage for them, 56.46, and a goal differential of 5-on-5 at plus 18 as well. So they can possess the puck, they can forecheck, they can generate speed, a lot of it. And we spoke earlier a few weeks ago when they did face off how Quentin Byfield is living up to his draft status as well on that line with Kopitar and Adrian Kempe as well, even though they're missing Victor Arvidsson and Phoenix Copley, their backup goaltender. they are still rolling. Philip Deneau, we know him as a defensive center as well. Kevin Fiala, who that trade looks to be working out for both the Minnesota Wild and the LA Kings, as Brock Faber, maybe he will be in the race for the Calder now that Connor Bedard is hurt and will be missing the All-Star game. We'll see. And even though Pierre-Luc Dubois is not on track for anywhere near his career highs in points, he is still a threat on the ice as well. And just can roll all the four lines once again, and all the deep pairs as well, where we even though there's been talk about Drew Doughty, is he overpaid and all, but still that he's definitely one that you need to look out for in the corners, as well as they're battling for pucks, and just try to throw them off their game with the forecheck as well. And that's going to be key. But the big key as well is scoring on the power play. The Panthers are on one heck of a streak on the power play. And we spoke about that triangle passing play that the Panthers have from the near side wall down low to Tkachuk, and then down in the slot for Reinhart. And with the LA Kings being the best as far as PK percentage, don't expect easy passes there when the Panthers do go on the man advantage. So that's going to be key. If you can consistently create the high danger chances on the power play, you're going to come out with a win tonight. And expecting Cam Talbot to be the starter for the LA Kings as well. They are not on a back-to-back they're not on a second end of a back-to-back. So we can expect Talbot to be in the crease for the LA Kings, but not going to be an easy one, as the Kings have had the Panthers number for the last 6 games as well for them. But that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. On tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, Nick Fairbanks will be joining the show for another edition of Fairbanks Friday, where we will be breaking down this game between the Florida Panthers and the Los Angeles Kings, and maybe even give some of our thoughts of 90s night for the Florida Panthers, as it will be their first of 3 theme nights for their 30th anniversary season. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steve Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.